Sirens cried across the broken city. Ash-colored dust hung in the air and turned every breath dry. People ran between cracked walls and fallen bridges. Above them, the sky turned black as dragon ships slid in front of the red star like cold knives. Captain Rafi Khan stood in the central square. His helmet was clipped to his belt. He wanted the dragons to see his face. He had the calm eyes of a soldier who had seen many fires, and the steady hands of a man who would not shake even when the ground shook first. Beside him stood Lyra, the alien girl diplomat. Her skin held a faint silver glow in the red light. Her voice trembled, but she did not leave. "Captain," she said, "they will read the law soon. When they read it, people kneel. On 100 worlds they kneel." Rafi did not answer. He watched the clouds split. A giant shape, dark and sharp, fell from the sky, one of the dragon flagships. Its hull was like the bones of a mountain. Its engines burned blue and cruel. The ship opened its mouth of metal, and a voice like thunder rolled over the city. "I am Ashkar," the voice said. "Wyrm King, keeper of flame. Hear the 7 dragon laws." The square grew silent. Even the sirens seemed to hold their breath. Smoke twisted around the old stone statues. Families pulled children close. Soldiers took positions behind broken cars and half walls, hands tight on worn rifles. Ashkar's voice shook dust from the windows. "First law, bow or burn." People dropped to their knees in fear. The habit was old. The memory of other worlds lived in them, worlds that burned when they did not bow. Lyra looked at Rafi. "Please," she whispered. "If you bow, they may leave. If you do not bow, they will make a lesson from this city." Rafi looked down, not to kneel, but to unroll a small human flag from his pouch. It was faded and clean at the same time, as if it had been washed with care for many years. He laid the flag flat on the cracked stone and smoothed it with his palm. He set it between himself and the sky. Lyra stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Marking the line," he said. He took one slow step back from the flag and lifted his chin. He did not raise his fists. He did not shout. He gave the dragons only his face and his silence. In that silence lived the weight of a promise. "We bow to no tyrant." Above them, small dragon skiffs swarmed like metal bees. Loudspeakers crackled. "Kneel," a guard ordered. Hands to the ground. Foreheads to the stone. No answer came from Rafi. The wind moved his hair. Dust clung to his lashes. A child near the fountain began to cry. Lyra swallowed hard, then stood a little straighter and placed one hand on the human flag to keep it from lifting in the wind. Ashkar laughed across the clouds. It was not joy. It was hunger. "Your silence is insult." A dragon cruiser fired a warning blast near the square. It struck an empty department store. The front of the building folded like paper. A wave of hot air rolled out. The shock hit the crowd and dust blew over everything. Glass rained down like hard glitter. For a long second, no one moved. The world was a bell still shaking from the strike. Rafi did not look away. He lifted 2 fingers by his side, a small signal. Somewhere beyond the square, in tunnels under the market, a human tech team saw the sign on a grainy screen. They opened a case marked with a burned letter E, Protocol Ember. Lyra's eyes shone with worry. "What is that?" "A promise," Rafi said. From the flagship came the next order. "Kneel or taste first fire." Soldiers around the square looked to their captain. Rafi's voice was low and even. "Civilians out through the blue alleys. Masks on the children first." His words went through the squad net and out to volunteers hidden under tarps and broken roofs. Human hands moved as one. They did not run wild. They guided. They carried. They whispered, this way," and they never stepped on the small flag in the dust. Ashkar's shadow grew larger. The flagship drifted forward until it swallowed half the sky. A hatch opened and light poured out like a white river. The light became a ramp. The ramp became a path. Something heavy landed on the far end with a sound like a hammer on stone. Lyra flinched. Rafi did not. A dragon came down the path. It was not a ship. It was a living thing. Red-black scales. Long wings that folded with the sound of leather pulled tight. A crest of dull metal rings along its neck. Its claws clicked on the ramp. Its eyes were old and bright like coals under ash. It wore a crown set into the bone of its head. The crown hummed softly like it had a mind of its own. The dragon stopped at the bottom of the ramp and looked over the square. It saw the kneeling people. It saw the ones who had fled. It saw the soldiers behind the walls. Then it saw the flag and the man who stood behind the flag. The dragon smiled. It was a small smile, but it was heavy because it said, "I know how this ends. I have seen it on other worlds. I have burned it into stone." The dragon folded its wings and walked forward. The ground shook in a slow beat under its weight. It came to a stop a few meters from the flag. It lowered its head until the sharp crown filled Rafi's world. "Kneel," the dragon said. Rafi's face did not change. He looked at the eyes, not at the teeth. "No," he said, calm as a closed door. The dragon's smile grew. "Then burn," its chest swelled. The crown rings lit like hot metal. A low hum rose in the air. The smell of old smoke and iron spread across the square. Children cried again. A dog tried to pull free from a rope and failed. Lyra put both hands on the flag now as if the small cloth could hold the city together. Rafi did not move. He lifted his hand slightly and pointed one finger at the cracked road between them. It was a tiny sign, almost nothing. But across the city, that same finger had pressed many hidden switches in the last week. People in tunnels watched a tiny red light on a dusty box turn to green. Ashkar's voice from the sky was pleased, like a judge who enjoys the sentence he gives. "Witness the fate of those who refuse the first law." The dragon drew a deep breath. Heat shimmered between its teeth. The air hissed. A quiet radio click sounded in Rafi's ear. "Ember ready," a tech whispered. "Hold," Rafi murmured. Lyra looked up at him. He did not look back. He kept his eyes on the dragon. He was measuring timing. He was reading wings, chest, throat, crown, breath. He had watched fire before and lived. He had learned the rhythm of danger. The dragon's head pulled back. Rafi lowered his hand a hair's width. The square held its breath. Then the dragon dipped its head even closer. So close Rafi could see his own face in those hot eyes and said one word again. Slow and soft, like a promise made of knives, "Kneel." The red star hung low like a wounded eye. Dust drifted through the broken streets. The dragon flagship kept its place above the city, heavy and sure like a mountain nailed to the sky. A new broadcast rolled over the rooftops. Ashkar's voice was iron wrapped in smoke. "Second law," he said. "Tribute of children. Every world must send its young to the dragon courts. 10 from every 1,000. Choose them in 1 hour. Deliver them to the square. Refuse and learn pain." The words hit harder than the sirens. Mothers held sons. Grandfathers held small hands. Some people began to write names on scraps of paper, as if a lottery could soften cruelty. Others just shook their heads and cried. Captain Rafi Khan stood where he had stood before, behind the small human flag. His face was calm, but the calm held a sharp edge. Beside him, Lyra listened with both hands still pressing the flag to the stone. "He wants the small," Lyra said, voice thin. "He always takes the small. He says it is page duty, but many do not come back." Rafi spoke into his throat mic, quiet and steady. "Protocol Ember, Stage 2. Blue alleys open. Green doors on lock. Move families now." Across the city, door locks clicked in hidden patterns. Vents slid open. A line of signs painted in glow paint appeared at ankle level. Tiny arrows along baseboards not made for adult eyes. Volunteers, old women, teenagers, shopkeepers, knelt and guided children into the narrow paths. In the square, a dragon enforcer ship unfolded like a dark flower. Empty cages hung below it, swinging on chains. Each cage had soft padding, gilded bars, and a small silver crown etched into the door. It looked safe. It looked clean. It looked like a lie. From the flagship, Ashkar added a rule. If elders refuse, soldiers will choose for them. On a side street, a human sergeant named Parvez watched a squad of dragon foot troops march toward a school. The troops wore black armor made from the bones of something big, with helmet slits glowing amber. Parvez counted 6 and made a sign with 2 fingers. 6, he breathed to the squad net, fast and quiet. Rafi heard him but did not answer. His eyes were on the ramp where the living dragon had stood. The ramp was empty for now. The air shimmered with heat and the metal smelled like storms. He turned to Lyra. "You know the old maps. Take 2 guides. Find the children in the east dorms. If you hear the word crown on the radio, change route to the river tunnels. Do not stop." Lyra nodded. Her eyes were bright with tears, but she did not wipe them. "Captain," she said softly, "if I do not return, speak my name to the stars. That is how my people remember." "You will return," Rafi said. "Go." Lyra ran, light on her feet, her silver glow dim in the dusty light. Two little drones spun up from under Rafi's coat and zipped after her, their wings silent as moths. The dragon troops reached the school first. They cut the lock with a warm blade and stepped inside. They did not shout. They did not push. They smiled with thin mouths as if this was some polite festival. "Pages," one called in a smooth, cold voice. "Come, you will learn the dragon tongue. You will eat well. You will see the worlds." A child near the back squeezed his sister's hand so hard her knuckles went white. Sergeant Parvez tapped his headset twice. Then he flicked a small marble into the doorway. The marble rolled and stopped at the boot of the first trooper. It blinked green once. The air sang. No fire, no bang, just a low tone that crawled into armor and bone. The troopers froze as their helm crowns flickered. Their claws slipped a step. Parvez and his team slid in like shadows, grabbed 4 kids at once and melted back into the hallway. A trooper shook free and swung a blade. It cut Parvez's sleeve and scraped his forearm. He did not cry out. He threw another marble. Low tone, helm flicker. The troopers reeled like drunk giants. Move, Parvez said, voice a low drum. Blue arrows, go. The children ran. The low arrows glowed at their feet. The hallway seemed to angle in ways that did not make sense. Changes made in the last 3 nights by people with tired eyes and brave hands. Back in the square, the dragon ship's cages clicked open. A screen on the hull began to show the time. 4:57:59. The seconds fell like rain. Someone in the crowd broke. He lifted a small boy and started toward the cage. Maybe they will spare us, he whispered to no one. Maybe if we give one... Rafi stepped in front of him and took the boy gently. He did not use force. He only looked the man in the eyes and said, We do not feed fear with our children. The man's face crumpled. He nodded, ashamed and desperate all at once. Lyra's voice burst across the net, out of breath. East dorms clear. 22 children with us. 2 babies. 1 broken ankle, moving riverway. Copy, Rafi said. Keep low. A new sound rolled over the city. Wings. Not ship wings. Real wings. The living dragon from the ramp rose into the sky again, heavy and graceful at once, like a temple bell carried by wind. It banked toward the east, hunting heat and fear. Rafi watched the flight path, eyes narrow. Crown, he said into the mic. At once the glow arrows near the east dorms flicked from blue to green and then to nothing. Doors closed. Grates sealed. Lyra stopped mid-step, reading the silent signs the way only a few could. She turned left into a dead-looking wall and passed through it. A sheet of water and clear plastic fell behind her, making the wall reel again. Above the square, the second dragon ship lowered chains. The cages swayed closer to the ground. Each empty door opened its small mouth like a smile. The timer fell, 0:43:12. A new voice came over the broadcast. It was young, sharp, proud, not Ashkar. A prince's voice. Humans, it said, almost laughing. You love the small so much? Good, bring them to us. We will teach them to forget you. Rafi's jaw tightened. He remembered an old battlefield on a cold moon, where he had carried a child under fire and lost 3 good men. He remembered the face of that child when the stars were safe again. He remembered the words she had said to him. Home. He spoke into the open channel, voice simple and clear. We will not give our children, not now. Not ever. The prince's laugh turned thin. Then we will take them. In a narrow market tunnel, Lyra heard the laugh echo through rusty pipes. Her group moved in a tight chain. 2 volunteers at the front, 2 at the back, children in the middle, small hands holding rope. A girl with a broken ankle rode in a cart made from 2 boards and 4 casters. She did not cry. She bit her lip and watched the shadows. One of Rafi's drones flicked its light twice. Lyra looked up. The drone showed a faint image on the tunnel wall, dragon heat shapes above, circling. The prince was hunting. Stop, Lyra whispered. She pressed her palm to a wet panel. A hidden door slid open, revealing a room of old pipes and cool air. The smell was clean, like stone after rain. Inside, they squeezed in. The door closed. The room went dark. Quiet breaths, Lyra said. Think of cold lakes. The children tried. One small boy pressed his face to his sister's shoulder and counted backwards in a whisper. Back in the square, the timer fell. UT 21:40. Dragon foot troops reached the market entrance. They sniffed the air. They bent to the ground, claws tapping near a smear of small boot prints. They followed. Rafi watched them on a cracked screen fed by tiny cameras the size of beans. He tapped a key. In the market tunnels, vents opened and released ghost heat. Fake warm air shaped like running children. The troopers smiled under their helms and rushed the wrong way. Ashkar spoke again, slow and heavy, like a lid closing. Time runs. Let it run, Raffi said under his breath. The living dragon swept over the square and hovered. Its shadow covered the flag. Dust rose around its claws. It tilted its head, curious now, eyes bright. It had hunted many worlds. It knew the smell of fear. But here the fear smelled. Organized. That was not normal. The timer reached Wyrm point 10. In the pipe room, Lyra heard a faint hiss. She lifted her head. Something was slipping through the vent above. Fine threads, almost invisible, moving like spider silk. She stood on a crate and peered close. The threads were not silk. They were crowns, thin and soft, smart metal in string form. If they touched skin, they would tighten and mark the child for collection. Lyra did not scream. She took a small knife from her boot and cut the threads gently, one by one, catching them in a bucket of salt water. The metal hissed and curled like burned hair. A boy held the bucket with both hands, arms shaking but steady. The timer fell. 004 miles. In the school, Sergeant Parvez carried the last child, too big to lift easily, but he lifted anyway. A dragon trooper finally shook off the low tone, fully and charged. Parvez slammed a door and dropped a mirror tarp across it. The trooper hit the tarp and saw himself huge and hot, and swung at the reflection. The wall behind the tarp rang like a bell. Parvez ran. All squads, Raffi said. Home stretch. Blue alleys to yellow court, then black stair. The living dragon dipped low. Its chest swelled. Light built in its throat. The prince laughed once more. Lyra opened the pipe room door and led the children into a narrow shaft. The shaft went down. It was dark and wet and smelled like metal and old river. The boy with the bucket carried his bucket like a crown of his own. In the square, the timer hit 0.10. Ashkar's voice came now, soft as a knife's kiss. Time! The dragon in the air opened its mouth. Raffi lifted his hand and made the smallest motion, a flick as if he were brushing away a fly. Deep under the square, something answered. The ground itself began to sing. The ground still hummed from the hidden song. Dust floated like pale smoke. Above, the flagship sat over the city like a dark lid. Then Ashkar spoke again, heavy and cold. Third law, he said. Words are chains. No public speech against dragons, no chant. No message, no sign. Break this law and we break your mouths. A hush fell. It was not the silence of calm. It was the silence of fear. People looked at each other and touched their lips as if the law could bite. Captain Raffi Khan did not move from the square. His flag lay between him and the sky. Lyra returned from the tunnels with wet hair and tired eyes. Children were safe for now, hidden deeper than the prince could smell. Sergeant Parvez's team faded into the ruins like smoke. On a wall above the square, a new machine opened its ribs. It looked like a black flower with no scent. Waves rolled out of it. The air felt thick like syrup. A mother tried to call to her son across the plaza. Her voice left her mouth strong and clear, but died after 2 steps cut to nothing. She clutched her throat. A dragon enforcer laughed from a balcony. Speak now, he said. We like to watch you try. Lyra's voice came soft into Raffi's ear. It is a silence crown, it eats sound. Their courts use it for trials. Raffi glanced at the machine. He said nothing for a breath. Then he touched the side of his neck. All units, he murmured, voice barely air. Switch to stone net, hands and eyes. Across the city, humans stopped talking. They started signing. Simple shapes, thumbs, palms, 2 taps for danger. A circle for gather. Hands spoke like quick birds. The dragon prince's voice slid over the roofs, bright and cruel. Ah, clever. But hands cannot carry hope far. He was half right. Words move faster than hands. Words ride radio. Words ride light. Words ride wind. But Raffi had built another road. He lifted a small case from the ground and opened it. Inside were old radios with cracked paint, switches big enough for clumsy gloves and short metal antennas. No fancy code. No smart crown could drink them. They spoke in grit and spark. Raffi handed one to Lyra. She turned the dial with careful fingers. Static. Then a voice, old and warm. Testing. This is Granny Sada at the bakery. Flour in my hair, sugar on my face. Can you hear me, my dears? Lyra smiled for the first time that day. She pressed the button. We hear you, Granny Sada. Across the blocks, other voices popped alive. A bus driver, a miner, a teacher with chalk still on her sleeves. They did not shout. They kept their voices low, steady. It felt like a candle passing light to 1,000 candles. The silence crown ate sound in the square, but these voices went around the crown like water around a rock. They slipped through alleyways, bounced off brick, crawled through pipes, a soft web of human breath, Ashkar noticed. The black flower turned. Its ribs trembled. New waves rolled out, stronger. Rafi set the case down at his feet. His fingers drummed once on its lid. A memory cut through the dust. A winter war, a frozen night. A message sent one street at a time with nothing but mouth and match. It had worked then. It would work now. He lifted a battered loudspeaker, big, ugly, wired to an old car battery. He checked the cable, then looked at Lyra. Ready? Lyra nodded, then did something brave. She climbed a broken statue beside him and stood where the crown could see her. Her silver glow was sharp in the red light. She pressed the radio button and spoke simple words. We want to live. The sentence walked out of the speaker. It did not shout. It was not fancy. It was soft, but it carried a shape like a spine. People in windows copied it. People in cellars copied it. It spread like rain, tapping on many roofs. The silence crown tried to swallow the line. It chewed and chewed, but the line kept crawling through cracks. A child in the tunnels whispered it into her sister's ear. A baker set it to her dough. A miner mouthed it to the rocks and smiled like he had a secret. The dragon prince grew annoyed. Cut their tongues, he snapped. Enforcer skiffs descended on cables. Black armor. Amber slits. Blades that made the air whine. They landed on the edges of the crowd and advanced with calm steps. Rafi raised his palm. Human shooters did not fire. Not yet, not unless needed. He pointed 2 fingers at the street lamps. Most were dead. But each lamp pole had a new belly, a resonance pipe welded by hands that smelled of oil and coffee. Rafi's thumb touched the loudspeaker switch. He did not raise his voice. He said one sentence and the city listened. We do not fear your fire, he began. We fear losing our voice. At the last word, he pressed a second switch with his heel. The lamp poles woke. The hidden resonance grid drank the sentence and sent it into the stone as vibration. Not loud. Deep. The ground itself whispered back. A dragon enforcer took a step and felt the stone sing under his boot. He frowned. The next step turned his balance to syrup. His helm crown flickered like a bad candle. Another enforcer lifted his blade and the blade shook as if it were tired. They looked at each other and did not understand. The street was telling them no in a language older than law, the prince hissed. Break the grid. From the flagship came a new machine, small, fast, nasty. It spat silence darts that stuck to walls and ate sound. One dart hit the loudspeaker. The speaker died with a sad buzz. Rafi did not swear. He reached into the case and pulled out paper. It was not fancy paper. It was thin, rough, and strong. Across each sheet ran a line of black ink that looked like tiny roads. At the bottom of each page was a single sentence in big letters. He had watched old movies of resistance. He had copied their tricks. He had made thousands of these in the long nights. Lyra took a stack. Parves took a stack. Teenagers in dusty hoodies took stacks and ran. The sentence on the sheet was the same one that had fed the stone. We do not fear your fire. We fear losing our voice. They threw the pages from rooftops. They stuffed them under doors. They tied them to cheap paper kites and let the hot city wind lift the words. The silence crown could eat sound. It could not eat ink. A dragon enforcer grabbed a page. He laughed and held it to a torch. The page burned, and the ashes floated into a stairwell where a grandmother opened her hand and caught them. She closed her fist, then blew the dust to her granddaughter's face and whispered the line. The girl nodded like she was taking a vow. The prince snarled. Enough. He lowered himself on a cable, armor shining like a dark jewel. His crown pulsed with cold light. He wanted the square. He wanted the flag. He wanted Rafi's mouth. He hit the stone with a soft thud and smiled with sharp teeth. Human captain, he said. Give me your tongue. Lyra moved without thinking. She stepped between them, small and bright like a blade of light. He speaks for many, she said. You cannot cut that many. The prince tilted his head. His eyes glittered. Watch me. He raised his hand. 4 enforcers pulled a long metal line from a crate. It was a voice chain, a crystal wire that could bind a person's speech and turn it into heat. They threw it toward Raffi like a snake. Raffi did not step back. He looked to the left, to a flooded alley where a thin trickle of water had started to creep from a cracked pipe when the ground sang. His eyes said now from that alley a kite slipped into the square. It was not a child's toy. It was a frame of reed and fiber covered in paper, painted with the same line in big letters. A tiny motor buzzed on its tail. It wobbled, fought the dirty wind, and rose. The voice chain struck the kite instead of Raffi. The crystal wire drank the kite's words, and the little motor answered with a sound of its own, a high, clean tone that the grid loved. The tone ran into the lamp poles, the pipes, the broken road. The ground answered louder. The enforcers stumbled again as if the earth had become a boat in a hard sea. The prince bared his teeth. He stepped over the flag to reach Raffi. His boot hovered above the cloth. Raffi's eyes went cold. He moved for the first time with speed. He put his hand on the prince's chest plate, not to push, just to stop that step. "Do not," Raffi said. The word was small. The meaning was heavy. For a heartbeat, the world held still, the kite twitching, the pages falling, the crown throbbing, the stone singing like a low drum. Then the flagship changed shape. Panels slid open along its belly. Inside them lived a new thing, round, black, smooth, with a small mouth like a flute. The elders did not use this often. It was made for wars of memory. Lyra's silver glow dimmed. She knew that sound. "Raffi," she whispered. "They will try to rewrite what we said." The black mouths inhaled. The air turned cold. The silence crown grew quiet. Listening, a soft, sweet note floated down, like a lullaby with poison in it. All the radios in the city began to whisper the dragon version of the sentence. "We do not fear our masters. We fear living without them." People froze. A boy frowned. A teacher blinked. Words can be a road. Words can also be a trap. Raffi lifted the last tool in his case. It was simple. It was a stamp with oath ink that bit like truth into anything it touched. He pressed the stamp on Lyra's palm. He pressed it on his own. He pressed it on the flag. The ink burned a little. The mark read, "True word." Lyra raised her stamped hand to the sky and spoke the line again, soft and plain with the weight of oath behind it. "We do not fear your fire," she said. "We fear losing our voice." The stone chose that line. The grid chose it. The people chose it. The false version slipped like oil and fell between bricks. The true one stuck like a nail. The prince saw the mark on the flag and hissed. He had seen oath ink only in old reports from old wars. He yanked the voice chain back and reached for Lyra's wrist. Raffi moved to block him, and the sky cracked with light as Ashkar himself dropped from the flagship. Wings wide, eyes like furnaces, crown screaming. He slammed into the square between them and the ground broke. "Enough," the Wyrm King said. The silence crown flared. Every page of paper in the air burst into sparks. "Speak again," Ashkar said, voice like a falling mountain, "and I will end not your words but your history." "Thou." Stone Song shivered. Lyra swallowed. Raffi looked up at the king and did not blink. The prince smiled and lifted the voice chain again. Ashkar stood in the broken square like a walking storm. His wings curled close. His crown burned cold. He looked down at the human flag and the oath mark that still glowed on its cloth. Then his voice rolled over the city. "Fourth law," he said. "The price of fire. All fuel, all heat, all cores belong to dragons. You will hand over your power plants, your lights, your ovens, your water pumps. You will live by our flame or live in the dark." The words cut deep. People felt the chill at once. Without power, the sick would freeze. Food would rot. Pumps would stop. Tunnels would drown. Captain Raffi Khan did not look away. He had planned for this law. He had planned for it while others slept. He spoke into his throat mic. Ember, Stage 3. Far under the city, a room of steel woke up. A fake fusion core hummed inside a cage of pretty coils. Its panels were polished. Its screens lied. It blazed with bait. Above ground, a dragon engineer barge drifted down like a fat beetle. Its sides opened to show hooks, cables, tools that glowed blue. Black armor tech stepped out with neat steps and perfect smiles. "Claiming your fire for the throne," one announced. "Be proud. Your heat will serve something greater than you." Lyra stood beside Rafi with a radio at her hip and damp hair on her shoulders. If they take the main plant, she whispered, the shelters will go cold. Rafi nodded once. They won't take it. He gave a small sign. Sergeant Parvez and 2 sappers crawled through a storm drain and came up inside the fake plant. They wore masks that smelled of lemon oil to cut the stink of coolant. Parvez checked a gauge that did not matter and smiled without joy. All pretty, he muttered. All poison. He placed a soft package on the floor next to the decoy core. It looked like a pillow filled with dark powder. He patted it like a friendly dog. Sleep, King's Crown, he said. In the real city, power already flowed, but not in one place. It crawled like roots. Micro-reactors the size of barrels throbbed in sewer pockets, shop basements, under church steps, behind old posters. Thin cables like black veins ran under stones across alleys, through holes in broken floors. Light came from many small fires now, not one big one. Rafi had cut the city into lanterns. The dragon techs reached the plant and purred at the shiny numbers. Acceptable, one said. Open the gates, steel doors rolled up. The fat beetle barge lowered heavy claws and latched to the fake core. The techs began the lift. Lyra watched a small screen on her radio. A red dot moved upward, slow and steady. They are taking it, she breathed. Good, Rafi said. The barge rose. The fake core cleared the door. Sunlight kissed its polished sides. The techs grinned like cats with cream. Now, Rafi whispered. Parvez pulled a cord from a drain. A tiny bell rang far away. The pillow under the fake core woke and melted into thick black foam. The foam rose in a rush, hit air, and flowered into a cloud that ate electric teeth. No blast, no fire. Just hungry dark powder that loved magnets more than dragons did. The barge shuddered. Its claws went dead. Its belly lights coughed. The core slipped, hung, then dropped back into the plant with a heavy kiss that shook dust from the rafters. Dragon techs shouted. Their helm crowns flickered. Their neat tools drooped like tired tongues. The black foam climbed their boots and froze them in place. Parvez saluted the stuck techs with 2 fingers. Price of fire, he said. We pay in tricks. Above, in the square, Ashkar felt the bite through the net of his machines. His eyes thinned. Petty, he said. He lifted a talon and the flagship answered. Panels opened along its belly again, but not for memory this time. Long siphons slid down like black harpoons. Their tips glowed with a cold blue that hurt to look at. Lyra's breath caught. Void siphons, she whispered. They drink heat straight from air. The siphons anchored to rooftops and street vents. The city's warmth bent toward them in invisible rivers. Steam thinned. Breath turned to smoke. People hugged themselves and stared at ovens that went dull. Rafi watched small lights on his wrist dim to orange. He spoke soft and fast. Lantern shift cut east, feed south. Underfoot, the micro-reactors changed path. They gave power to pumps first, then to the medicine coolers, then to the tunnel fans. Apartment lights faded, but the hospital lights held steady. A baker's oven died, but the water plant sang on. Choices hurt, but they saved. The dragon prince stepped forward, eyes bright with cold joy. You hide your fire in crumbs, he said. We will sweep the crumbs. He waved. Enforcer teams fanned out with heat lens rods, sniffing for the little fires. Rafi lifted a small cage from a crate at his feet. Inside hung dozens of thin paper moths on a wire. Each moth had a tiny metal heart. He opened the cage door and wind took them. The paper moths rose and danced over the rooftops. Each one carried a warm seed that was not power but felt like it. The heat lens rods went wild, chasing moths like dumb dogs. Enforcers laughed and ran after the wrong stars. Lyra smiled, tired and fierce. Fireflies, she said. Amber moths, Rafi answered. Let them chase paper while children breathe. The dragon engineer barge coughed weakly above the fake plant, still stuck in the black foam. Techs sawed at the goo with blades that squealed and only sank deeper. One shouted up to the prince. We need the throne's flame! Ashkar's head tilted, listening. He hated asking for help. He loved winning more. He spread his wings and looked at the red star like a king calling an old friend. Open the rift gate, he said. The sky cracked like glass in winter. A circle of night appeared at noon, rimmed with silver fire. Wind poured from it, cold and smelling of far places, iron, night water, old caves. Inside the hole, shapes moved, long pale coils older than crowns. Elder worms turned their heads and looked through the city like it was a small toy. People dropped to the ground. Some prayed. Some clutched the flag in their minds. Lyra's silver glow dimmed with fear. If the elders come, they bring court fire. Court fire does not miss. Rafi's face stayed still, but his hand closed once on the flag. Hard. We hold, he said. We hold anyway. The rift wind hit the siphons. The siphons drank like thirsty throats. Frost crawled across rooftops. A fountain froze mid-splash into a glass flower. Somewhere a pipe cracked like a gun. Micro-reactor lights on Rafi's wrist trembled. One by one, small dots went from orange to red. Parvez, he said, voice low. We need the river line. Parvez was already there, knee-deep in black water, fingers numb. He kicked a rust wheel until his boot hurt and shouted at a silent valve like it was a stubborn mule. Open, you old sinner! The wheel turned. Cold water rushed into a trench, and a row of water turbines that had looked like trash began to spin. Little lights winked on in the tunnel map. Fans breathed. Pumps thumped. The city took a slow, cold breath and did not die. The prince sneered. You breathe like fish, fine, we will boil the river. He signaled a striker skiff. It dipped toward the canal, mouth glowing. Rafi lifted his palm. Lanterns, veil. All across the river steam sheets rose. Thin fog walls born from hot stones dropped into shallow pans. To a dragon's heat eye, the river now looked like a swamp of warm mud. The skiff spat fire at the wrong spots, and boiling water roared where no pipe lay. Lyra touched Rafi's elbow. We are buying minutes, she whispered. Not hours. I need minutes, Rafi said. Just enough to teach a cost. He looked at the fake plant again. The barge was still stuck. The techs were still bound. The siphons drank. The rift wind howled. Stage 4, Rafi said. Deep under the decoy core, a stone bladder cracked. Thick salt mist crawled out, climbed the foam, touched the barge, and turned to needles of frost. The barge shivered and sagged. Its belly skin crazed with 1,000 fine lines. Parvez grinned despite blue lips. That's it. Split, you ugly can. The barge cracked with a sound like ice on a lake. Its anchors let go. It dropped back into the plant and jammed the doorway with its own bulk. The fake core sat inside like a smug idol. Above, the siphons felt the shock and hiccuped. For 3 breaths, the pull eased. In those breaths, the micro-reactors pushed hard. Hospital lights went bright. Fans laughed. A tunnel clinic warmed one small room for a baby with a cough. Ashkar saw the push and bared his teeth. Enough games. He stepped onto the flag. The cloth did not tear. The oath ink flared white as snow. Ashkar hissed and pulled his foot back as if he had stepped on a coal. His crown spat sparks. Around the rift, the elder worms drew closer. Their eyes were old sons. One spoke in a voice that sounded like a canyon. Name the debt, Ashkar. Do not waste our fire on your pride. A ripple went through the enforcers. Pride. The word fell like a stone. Rafi heard it and felt a small door open. He lifted his loud, ugly megaphone battery again. The darts had killed the speaker, but the casing still weighed like a brick. He placed it on the flag and spoke to Lyra without moving his lips. Can you send a message to the Elder Court? One line, old law words. Lyra blinked. Maybe, she said. If I cut my glow into the grid and bleed a little? Do it, Rafi said softly. Say this, honor to the hand that saved hatchlings. Lyra nodded. She pressed her stamped palm to the flag. Her silver light seeped into the oath ink. She closed her eyes, bit her lip, and pushed the sentence through the stone song like a prayer. Above, the elder worms paused. Memory stirred like deep water. On some far day in some far system, humans had carried dragon eggs out of a burning orbit in pots and blankets. A promise had been signed. The promise had been erased by a king who needed fear more than truth. Old law woke in old bones. Ashkar felt the shift. His crown screamed. Do not listen, he roared at the rift. These monkeys forge false words. The elder voice was slow. We will see. The siphons dimmed a fraction. The rift narrowed a finger's width. The prince's smile died around the edges. Ashkar's eyes went hot. He stretched his wings wide as knives. Then I will end the lanterns, he said. One by one. He leapt into the air, beating wind down like fists. He rose higher, past the lamp poles, past the rooftops, into the shadow of his own throne ship. His mouth opened. The light in his throat was not red. It was pale and hungry. It did not warm. It took. Lyra swayed. Parvez swore in the dark. The micro-reactor lights fell toward red again. Rafi lifted the megaphone casing and the small human flag together. He set them on a crack in the stone where the resonance pipes crossed like bones. He put his stamped hand on the cloth and spoke to the city without sound. "Last gate," he told the stone. "Open." Under the square, a sealed room unlocked. Inside that room, a ring of tuned plates began to tremble. They had names scratched on them in pen: Nadia, Iqbal, Sada, Parvez, Lyra. The plates answered each other and fed the grid with a pure note humans had saved for when the sky went darkest. The stone sang back so deep that even dragons felt it in their teeth. Ashkar hesitated in the air for the first time. The rift wind faltered. And then, like a second sun behind a cloud, a new shadow moved inside the gate, larger than the others, older than Quartz, a shape like a mountain coil with a broken horn. The elder worm turned its head toward the city and very slowly lowered its great crown, a bow. Ashkar hissed and dove. Raffi looked up, hand on the flag, and did not blink. The chapter broke in the breath before collision. Ashkar fell like a black star. Raffi stood with one hand on the small flag, the other on the cold megaphone case. The ground sang deep. The rift above narrowed as the elder worm bowed. Ashkar felt that bow and changed shape in the air. He pulled up, turned, and spat a ribbon of pale fire at a far block instead. Stone screamed. Smoke rose. He wanted to remind the elders and the city both. He still held the higher sky. His voice rolled out sharp and cruel. "Fifth law," he said. "The hunt without trial. Any who insult the throne become game. We hunt you where we find you. No court, no judge. Only teeth." The words chilled even the brave. A hunt is not war. War has rules. A hunt is hunger with legs. Enforcer skiffs split like knives through cloth. They dropped cords. Black-armored hunters slid down with smooth grace. Their helms sniffed heat and fear. Their claws tapped the stone like patient rain. The prince smiled from a balcony, eyes bright like cut amber. "Captain Raffi Khan," he called, "you spoke against the throne. You are now game. Run." Raffi did not run. He moved one step and picked up a narrow case by the flag. He opened it. Inside lay small tools that looked like toys. Thin mirrors, dull needles, rolls of soft gray cloth, bundles of balloons folded as flat as dry leaves. He spoke into his throat mic low. "Hunt plan. Echo 1. Across the blocks, human teams woke like nerves. They did not shout. They touched wrists. They tapped pipes. They looked at the sky once, then looked down and began to work." Lyra came to Raffi's side. Her hair was dry now, her silver glow thin but steady. "They will not stop," she said. "They will chase a breath, a thought, a shadow." "Then we feed them shadows," Raffi said. He took the gray cloth and wrapped it around his chest and back. It was not metal. It was mirror thread, stitched by long nights and steady hands. Parvez helped pull it tight. The cloth drank light and gave back shapes that were not true. Raffi looked thinner, then wider, then like a broken doorway, then like dust. If you did not stare, you saw nothing. If you did stare, you saw too much. Lyra spread a soft paste across Raffi's palms and throat. It cooled the skin. "This hides your sweat," she said. "They smell fear, heat, salt. We take 2 away." Raffi nodded. He handed her a small square with blinking dots. "Helm codes," he said. "From the ones we trapped at the plant." "Can you ride their eyes?" Lyra's mouth made a thin line. "For a time." She pressed the square to her radio and winced as a spark bit her finger. "Give me 10 heartbeats. Then move." The prince raised a hand. Hunters dashed into the alleys like sleek wolves. The ground song slowed, then grew quiet. Raffi had shut most of the grid to stop it from giving him away. The city felt like a field in snow. Parvez set a bundle on the road and pulled a string. Heat balloons bloomed, paper skins the size of a dog pulsing with small warm seeds. They drifted low down the street, then lifted. On Dragon Sight, they were hearts beating in the wrong places. Hunters saw them and grinned. They leaped and swiped. Balloons popped, more rose. 100 false lives filled the air. A hunter pounced, then hit only heat and paper, and heard a whisper of human laughter from a roof. Raffi moved into the maze. He did not sprint. He walked like a careful cat, slow, smooth, sure. Mirror cloth bent his edge. Paste hid his shine. He carried 3 silent darts like silver fish between his fingers. Lyra whispered into his ear. "I am in their helms. I can paint a heartbeat 1 street away." "Do it," Raffi whispered. On a ruined corner, 3 hunters froze as their helmet glass showed red pulses racing down a side lane. They rushed the lane. It was a dead end with a stove and a chair and a window frame with no glass. They hissed, confused. One lashed out and broke the stove. It fell with a clang and a puff of cold ash. Rafi slipped behind them like a long thought. He leaned, quick as a blink, and touched one helm with a dart. The dart did not explode, it drank. It sucked the small crown inside the helm dry. The hunter staggered and fell to one knee, blind as a man in thick smoke. Another hunter turned. He saw Rafi for a second, not as a man but as a shape that did not fit the wall. He swung, Rafi rolled. The blade kissed brick and cried sparks. Rafi flicked a second dart into the hunter's collar. The dart drank. The helm lights died. The hunter swung at dark and hit air. He saved his third dart. He might need it for a king or a prince or a moment where everything turns. The prince spoke again, amused. "Running in circles is still running, Captain." Rafi did not answer. He slid under a broken slab and tapped a pipe twice. Somewhere, a small motor kite woke and began to buzz along a wire, pulling a string of paper slips with a child's drawing of a heart. Hunters followed the false pulse into a laundry yard and tangled their claws in wet sheets. Humans watching from vents grinned and did not clap. A young dragon scout dropped from a low skiff onto a balcony above Rafi's route. He was smaller than the others, scales a softer red, crown studs dull, movements sharp with the eagerness of the unblooded. He peered down and saw a soft blur where no blur should be. He hissed and leaped. He hit the alley 10 steps behind Rafi and sprang forward with a hunter's joy. Rafi turned at the last step. The scout's claw came for his throat. Rafi stepped inside the claw and set his palm on the scout's shoulder. Not a strike, not a shake, just a stop. The scout blinked. In that small beat, Rafi's free hand reached up and set the last silent dart gently on the scout's helm stud. The dart did not drink. It clicked and stayed still. The scout went wide-eyed. He felt the cool thing above his brow. He could not see what it was. He froze, thinking of traps he had only read about. Rafi leaned close and spoke very low. "Listen." The hunt around them roared like a storm. The city made soft noises. A door, a breath, a piped sigh. Far off a cough rose and fell. Above, the rift hummed like cold bees. The scout swallowed. His claw shook, but not with fear. With confusion. Rafi showed his empty hand and moved the dart from the scout's helm to his own shoulder. "If I wanted you dead," he said, "you would be quiet already? Go home." The scout's eyes burned. "We do not go home from a hunt." Rafi nodded once. He did not argue honor. He pointed up at the rift, at the old shadow with the broken horn. "Your elders bow to truth," he said. "Ask them a question when you can breathe. Who saved the hatchlings at Cinder 3? The scout's mouth opened, then closed. He had never heard that name. His training had a blank there. Blank meant do not ask. Blank meant fear. Rafi stepped back and dropped his hand. The scout could shout and bring blades. The moment hung like a thin bridge. The scout did not shout. He whispered, voice rough like a stone rolled in water. "You run from Law 5, but Law 6 is the real chain. Cut that and we cannot hunt." He looked ashamed of himself for saying it. He threw a claw at the wall near Rafi's head so it would leave a scar and look like a miss on purpose, then leaped back to the balcony and into the skiff's shadow. Rafi watched him go, then breathed once and moved on. Lyra's voice was tight. "I saw that through his helm." "You spared him." "Not for him," Rafi said. For the next minute, hunters closed on his street again. Lyra painted a false pulse 2 roofs over. They split their pack, clever but not clever enough to ignore a heart. Rafi climbed a stairwell without steps. A pipe ladder bolted in last night by a plumber who had once fixed school sinks. He came out on a narrow roof with a dead garden. Dry vines rattled like bones. A hunter landed hard in front of him. Another hit the roof behind. Their helms brightened. They had him. Rafi looked left and saw the mirror cloak Parvez had left for him on a line. He grabbed it, swung it open, and threw it around himself and the dead garden both. The cloak did not make him invisible. It made him another roof. From the sky, the hunter saw only gray, flat, cracked, nothing alive. They stepped forward and saw too many lines. The cloak sent back 4 Rafis at once. A man made of fence, a man made of sky, a man made of smoke, a man made of door. The hunters slashed and met their own confusion. The rooftop crumbled under one of them, and he fell through into a kitchen sink. Rafi slid to the edge and dropped into a stair gap as if he had never been there. The prince's amusement thinned. Tiresome, he lifted his hand. Enforcer helms pulsed. The false pulses stuttered. Lyra hissed. The prince was pushing rough code through the net, blinding her hack. 5 heartbeats left, she warned. Then I lose their sight. Enough, Raffi said. He ran across a narrow beam over a small courtyard and dropped into shadow. He crouched by a low wall. Children's chalk marks were there, arrows, suns, a tiny flag. He touched the flag once for luck. Hunters flowed into the courtyard from 3 sides. The air tasted like metal and cold fear. Raffi could fight 2. He could not fight 6. Barveza's voice scratched his ear. 2 seconds. Gift incoming. A window above the courtyard slammed open. An old woman, Granny Sada, flowers still in her hair, threw a bucket. It looked like water. It was not. It was oil beads and ground pepper and glass dust, a baker's hate mixed into a city trick. The beads stuck to helms. The pepper burned eyes under glass. The dust made the air a white wall. Raffi used that wall. He moved like a short wind through legs and claws, touching wrists, turning blades into doors, setting feet wrong with small taps. No killing, no time, just misstep after misstep. Hunters fell into each other and snarled. Lyra's hack died. The false pulses went dark. Hunters shook their heads clear. The prince dropped into the courtyard with a soft, happy sigh. He did not wear a mirror or a siphon. He wore light and hunger. His blade sang when it left the scabbard. Run ends, he said. Raffi stood, chest heaving, mirrorcloth scratched, palm stinging. He had one tool left in his hand. Not a dart, not a blade, not a bomb. It was a stamp with oath ink, the same as before. He pressed it against the low wall. The mark flared on brick, no hunt without trial. The prince laughed. Ink is not law. He stepped forward. The stone did not laugh. The stone remembered the deep song. It remembered the elder bow. It remembered names scratched on plates. When the stamp touched it, the stone sang one note very low. Every hunter's helm blinked, then showed a warning in old dragon script, one the prince had seen only in dust books. Trial clause detected. For a heartbeat, the pack paused. Old law tugged at new pride. The prince snarled and cut through the pause. We are the law. He raised his blade for Raffi's throat. Raffi's hand snapped up. It held nothing. Then, above them, the rift flared, and the elder Wyrm with the broken horn leaned closer. Its great eye filled the courtyard like a second moon. A voice rolled down, slow as tide. Who hunts without trial, the elder said, hunts alone. The prince's helm flickered and went dark. His blade wavered. His pack stumbled as their links cut. Their crowns went quiet. For a breath, they were just bodies in armor. Raffi did not strike. He stepped forward and set his palm on the flat of the prince's blade and stopped it with steady pressure, like stopping a door in a storm. Around them, other hunters hissed, confused, blind, angry. From the balcony where the young scout watched, a whisper slid down like a thread. Law 6, he breathed, to no one and everyone. He will strike it. The elder's eye narrowed. The rift wind paused. Ashkar roared from above, a sound like a cliff breaking. Enough of old words. He folded his wings and dived straight for the courtyard, and the chapter ended in the breath before impact. With Raffi's hand still on the blade, the stone mark still glowing, and the hunt suddenly unsure of its own law, Ashkar dived like a hammer. The prince's blade pressed against Raffi's hand. Hunters crouched ready to spring. The elder Wyrm's great eye watched from the rift, cold and old. Ashkar's shadow fell over the courtyard. Then he pulled up at the last blink, wings hard, stones lifting in his wind. He wanted the kill. He wanted the fear. But first he wanted to break the spine of the city in a deeper way. His voice rolled across roofs and tunnels like black water. 6th law, he said. Memory belongs to the throne. The words felt colder than any wind. People did not cry out. They forgot to. Across the city, memory forges opened like dark flowers. They rose from crates, from skiff bellies, from the backs of enforcers. Each forge was a low, round engine with a crown of thin needles. They began to hum. They breathed a faint silver mist that tasted like old coins in winter. Signs changed. Streets forgot their names and learned new ones. Freedom Bridge became Ashkar's Mercy. School Lane became Tribute Way. The oath mark on the low wall, no hunt without trial, flickered, blurred, and tried to spell something else. In the tunnels, a mother suddenly could not remember her daughter's birthday. She gripped the little hand and shook, frightened by the hole in her own head. On a balcony, the young dragon scout stared as his own training lit up inside his helm. Files updated, past cleared, a blank where a story should be. He pressed his claws to his temples and hissed. Blank meant obey, blank also meant lie. Lyra swayed. I can feel it, she whispered. They are pushing a new story into our bones. Rafi's jaw tightened. He spoke into his throat mic, firm. Ember scribe. Under the city, cupboards opened. Paper logs slid out, stacks of thin pages, each stamped in oath ink. Steel plates lay waiting, names etched with cheap blades. Teenagers hauled them up ladders. Grandfathers passed them along with shaking hands. Children slapped fresh pages onto doors with paste made of flour and salt. Sergeant Parvez pushed open a hidden hatch in an old library. Inside, he found the first forge already at work. Tall, thin dragon archivists stood around it, their claws like quills, their scales dull gray. Their crowns glowed with a sad light. They were not soldiers. They were erasers. Parvez tossed a small chalk bomb at their feet. It burst into heavy white dust. The archivists coughed and blinked, crowns stuttering. Parvez slid on his knees under a table, slapped a mirror tile against the forge eye, and grinned as the engine began to rewrite its own reflection into nonsense. Copy that. You liar, he muttered. In the square, Ashkar spread one wing like a judge showing a law book. Your first words are dust now. Your flag is a rag. Your dead have no names. The little human flag at Rafi's feet trembled. The oath ink pulsed weakly, fighting the mist. The marked true word dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. Rafi picked up the flag and pressed it to his palm. Hold, he told the cloth, voice quiet as if soothing a child. Then he looked at Lyra. We need proof. Not just ink, something the elders cannot erase without breaking their own law. Lyra's silver glow thinned to a thread. Old law says if a story saved hatchlings, it cannot be deleted. Not by a king, only by a court with witnesses. Rafi nodded once. Then we give them the hatchling story. The prince laughed from the courtyard edge, eyes bright. What story? The throne records show only this. Humans burn, dragons rule. Rafi opened a small tin box from his coat. Inside lay a black shard of glass with a white scratch across it, like a star with a crack. He set it on the flag. Lyra, he said, can you lift it? Lyra touched the shard. Her eyes widened. Inside it slept an old picture. Men and women in thick jackets carrying round pots through sparks and ash. Behind them, a small cluster of dragon eggs glowed like banked suns. The humans were coughing, laughing, crying, alive. A tiny note at the edge. Cinder 3, Evac Unit 12, hatchling secured. Lyra's hands shook. How did you... Paper shop owner, Rafi said. He kept it in a tea tin. Ashkar's crown screamed. Stop. He flung a rewrite pulse at the shard. The image fuzzed. The men became smears. The eggs faded. Lyra slammed her stamped palm on the glass. Oath ink bit. The image steadied, then bled into the flag's fibers, then into the stone song under the square. Rafi lifted his head. Elder Court, he said, voice calm and simple, speaking to the rift like it was a door. Witness this. Humans saved your young at Cinder 3. The elder worm's great eye narrowed. The rift wind slowed as if the whole sky held its breath. Ashkar struck back hard. The memory forges around the square inhaled and exhaled in quick, angry breaths. The mist thickened. Names peeled off steel plates like dry leaves. Pages yellowed in an instant. Lyra blinked and for a heartbeat could not remember Rafi's name. Her face went white. She looked at him and saw only a shape in mirror cloth. Panic edged her voice. Who? Rafi did not flinch. He pressed his stamp to her wrist again. The mark burned. Say my name, she closed her eyes. The ink tugged a hidden thread. The thread pulled a picture back through fog. The calm eyes, the steady hands, the small flag on broken stone. Rafi, she breathed. Rafi Khan. Memory forges beat faster. On one rooftop, an archivist bent over a sleeping boy with a thin needle, ready to change a bedtime story into a chain. The young scout landed on that roof like a red whisper. He knocked the needle aside. The archivist hissed, eyes offended. Obey the lattice, he said. Truth is what the throne repeats. The scout bared his teeth. Truth is what saved us. He ripped the lattice wire from the forge, then threw his own helm on the machine, crown down. Sparks spat. The forge stuttered and smoked. Back in the library, Parvez slid under the main table as an archivist stabbed at him with a quill claw. Ink splashed his face. He rubbed it away with a sleeve and laughed breathless. You write pretty lies, he said. I write ugly truth. He kicked the forge switch and the mirror tile locked the engine in a loop. It began to copy itself into a blank that had no target, eating its own story like a snake biting tail. Lyra, Raffi said, watching lights on his wrist deep orange. We need the brood mark, the elder seal. Without it, Ashkar will say the shard is forged. Lyra looked at the rift, then at her palm, then at the young scout on the rooftop. He can fetch it, she whispered. They will not strike him from the sky while the elder eye is open, the scout heard. He set his jaw and leaped into the thin air, wings beating hard. He flew up, not to Ashkar, not to the prince, but to the edge of the rift where the cold wind could tear scales. He lifted both claws high, empty. Elder Court, he cried, voice small against the huge dark. By the old claws, grant witness seal. For a long blink, nothing moved. Then the elder with the broken horn turned a little. A thread of silver slid from its crown and touched the scout's brow. The scout screamed once, not in pain, but in shock, and glowed with a soft mark that looked like a hatchling's tiny claw print. He fell, caught himself, wobbled, then aimed for the square. Ashkar saw him coming. His wings snapped wide. Traitor! He roared. Raffi stepped forward without fear and raised the small flag. Under witness, he said. The grid heard the word and trembled like a drum. The scout landed hard, knees shaking, and pressed his new mark to the shard on the flag. The claw print flashed. The image of Cinder 3 sharpened until even ash flakes had edges. Lyra pushed the picture into the open channel, not through dragon nets, but through old radios, through paper carried by kites, through steel plates warmed by hands, through the stone itself. It flowed like a river that could not be dammed, across rooms and alleys. People remembered at once, not the details, but the feeling. Humans carrying heat that was not theirs. Hands raw, voices hoarse, saying, Careful, don't drop them. They are small. The elder Wyrm spoke from the rift, slow and heavy. Record stands. Cinder 3. Human hands saved eggs. The prince's smile cracked. Ashkar's crown screamed until sparks blew from its seams. He slammed his talons into the square. The memory forges all over the city shuddered and changed shape. They became black quills that floated into the air and began to write over the sky itself, twisting letters hard and cruel. Humanity. Blank. The letters tried to sink into the star ledger, the deep record that names species and their deeds. If they took, Law 7 would slide into place like a blade in a sheath. No name, no plea. No plea, no trial. No trial, only ending. Lyra's breath came sharp. He is wiping the name. Raffi did not look away. His voice stayed simple. Then we write it back. He lifted a steel plate with scratches made by many hands. At the top were 5 plain words, We are the humankind. Under it, tiny names cut by cheap knives, Nadia, Iqbal, Sada, Gibran, Parvez, Lyra, and 100 more. The plate shook in his grip. It was ugly. It was heavy. It was real. He slammed the plate onto the flag. Oathink bit the metal. The stone song rose deep and true, humming inside bones and pipes. People across the city banged pots, kicked doors, hit railings. Anything that could sound like I am here. The noise climbed the lamp poles and ran along the grid's ribs. The black quills paused, confused by a wall of simple sound. Ashkar opened his mouth to order the quills through, but the elder Wyrm's voice fell first. By old law, the elder said, a name with witness cannot be erased by crown alone. It needs court. The rift narrowed a little more toward calm. The wind stopped pulling the city's breath. The quills wavered, then wrote slower, then lifted their points, unsure. Ashkar's eyes burned with furnace hate. Then bring your court, he spat. I will show them my fire. Raffi did not smile. He looked up and spoke like a teacher to a loud class. You will show them your pride, he said. That is heavier. On the rooftop, the young scout, breathing hard, crown mark still warm, looked at Raffi with a strange light in his eyes. Respect. Fear. Hope. Parvez's voice scratched in Raffi's ear. We've jammed 4 forges, Captain. The big one is under the old clock. It's different. It edits people, not pages. Lyra went pale. If that one fires, the city will forget what human means. Ashkar heard her. He smiled, slow and sharp. He lifted one claw and pointed at the clock tower. The big forge woke like a whale opening an eye. Its mist rolled out and tasted the air. Erase, Ashkar said softly. The world tilted. Rafi grabbed the flag with both hands. He felt names tug at the edge of the rift like kites in a storm. He could not hold them all. He could hold one thing. Say it, he told Lyra, voice steady. Lyra pressed her stamped hand to the steel plate, to the shard, to the cloth. She took a breath that tasted like dust and truth. We are the humankind, she said. We saved hatchlings. We keep names. We remember. The stone chose the line. The grid sang back. The big forge coughed, then spat, then wavered as if it could not find a clean page to write on. Ashkar raised both wings. He would crush them with Law 7 next. He would end the talk and the names and the lanterns. The elder Wyrm's eye burned like winter sun. Enough, he said. Court will hear. King Ashkar, stand to trial. The prince took a step back, eyes wide. Hunters froze, helms flickering between command and claws. Rafi's shoulders dropped a fraction. He did not relax. He lifted the flag higher. Ashkar showed his teeth. Trial? He growled. Then I choose the old trial. Lyra's hand tightened on the radio. Her voice was a thread. What is the old trial? Rafi's eyes stayed on the Dragon King. He knew. He had read the dust pages. He had prepared a little. Not enough. Fire in line, he said. Species against throne. One mistake ends a line. Ashkar laughed, long and bright and terrible. Seventh law waits, he sang. Go forever or end the line. The chapter broke on the edge of that word with the court called, the name defended, the big forge shuddering, and the oldest trial rising like a blade. Ashkar's laugh rolled over the city like hot iron. Old trial, he said. Fire in line. Species against throne. One mistake and a line ends. The rift above narrowed into a bright ring. Inside it, the elder worms gathered like mountains with eyes. The elder with the broken horn watched without blinking. The wind from the gate went still, as if the sky itself wanted to hear the answer. Captain Rafi Khan did not look away. The small human flag hung from his hand, oath ink bright on the cloth. Lyra stood at his side, palm stamped, breath steady. Sergeant Parvez wiped dust from his face and checked the last charges on the resonance grid. The prince smiled thin and sharp. Choose, human. Kneel now and we spare your line. Refuse and the old trial begins. If you fall even once, we erase your name from the star ledger. No more human, only blank. Rafi lifted the flag and spoke for all. His voice was simple. It was iron. We do not kneel. Ashkar's wings opened. Then trial, he said. 3 proofs. Strength, honor, memory. Fail anyone and you end. The elder court's voice was slow as ice. Accepted. Ash-colored dust turned in the square. The city held its breath. First proof. Strength Ashkar rose into the air. He drew a circle with fire that did not warm. The circle hung above the square like a pale ring. Cross, he said. Carry your light. If it dies, you are weak. From a crate, Parvez lifted a lantern no bigger than a pot. It was a micro-reactor wrapped in cloth and wire. It hummed like a bee. It was the city's breath in a small skin. Rafi took the lantern. The pale ring waited, cold and high. Below it, a net of void siphons began to feed. Anything warm would be eaten in the climb. Lyra touched Rafi's sleeve. It is a trap, she whispered. The ring drinks light. Good, Rafi said softly. Let it drink. He stepped to the wall of a broken building and began to climb. Not fast, not slow. Each hand found truth, brick, pipe, muted metal. Hunters watched from roofs, helms dim under court eyes. The prince folded his arms and smiled. Halfway up, the lantern flickered. The siphons pulled at it like hungry mouths. Rafi did not fight the pull. He fed it with small, chosen sips. He opened a valve a hair. He shut it, he opened it. He matched the pull to the beat of his heart. One for him, one for the city, one for the court. The lantern learned the rhythm and steadied. At the top, the pale ring hummed like frost. Rafi took one breath. He stepped through. The light died. On the ground, a child cried out. Rafi did not panic. He set the lantern on the ring itself. The ring ate. He did not stop it. He held the flag to the metal. The oath ink bit cold. The ring shivered. For a blink, it remembered law older than kings. Circles are not only cages. Circles can be crowns. The ring gave back a sliver of what it stole. The lantern lit, small but true. Rafi lifted it and climbed down. He set it on the broken stone beside the flag. Strength stands, he said. The elder court's voice rumbled. First proof kept. Ashkar's smile thinned. Second proof, Honor. Ashkar dropped to the square with a sound like a drum. He pointed a claw at Lyra. Honor, he said. Return what is taken. Your species took a dragon child from my patrol last night. Bring him now, or admit theft. Rafi's eyes narrowed. We took no child. Ashkar flicked a talon. A skiff door opened. A small figure stood inside, thin and shaking. A human boy with a crown wire on his neck. The prince's smile returned. Perhaps we took first, he said. Honor demands return. Return yours and we return ours, people murmured. Parvez's jaw clenched. Lyra's eyes went wet, then clear. Rafi looked at the boy. The crown wire gleamed. It would tighten if pulled by the wrong hand. We return children to mothers, not to thrones, Rafi said. Bring his mother. We will return him to her. Ashkar's eyes burned. You twist honor. The elder with the broken horn spoke at last. Honor is who receives, not who holds. Bring the mother. The prince's smile cut. He did not have her. Rafi raised his chin. Granny Sada, he called. The old baker stepped from a doorway, flower still in her hair, hand steady. He is Noor, she said. He is mine. She walked to the skiff. The prince hissed and made the crown wire tighten. Granny Sada did not stop. She pressed her palm, stamped in oath ink, to the wire. True word, she said. The wire unclasped like it had remembered a rule it didn't want to. She took the boy and kissed his hair. He sobbed into her flower apron. Rafi turned to Ashkar. Your turn, he said. Return what you took. Ashkar's mouth thinned. The young dragon scout stepped forward, voice clear. They took me, he said. Not by hand, by law. Hunt without trial. I claim return. Court silence fell like snow. Old words are heavy. The elder bowed a fraction. Return, he said. Ashkar growled. Memory of Law 5's paws pressed on his crown like a stone. At last he drew a line with his claw on the ground. The line glowed, then softened. Return granted, he said with iron teeth. The scout stepped across and stood with Rafi and Lyra. He did not look back. The elder court spoke. Second proof, kept. Ashkar's crown spat sparks. Third proof, memory. The big forge under the old clock woke again. Its mist rose, cold and silver. Letters crawled in the air like thin worms heading for the star ledger. Ashkar raised his head. Final proof, he said. Name lasts only if you can carry it through fire. He breathed a narrow column of pale flame. It did not spread, it cut. It drew a burning line between Rafi and the flag. On one side, the steel plate with names, the shard of cinder 3, the oath mark. On the other, Rafi, Lyra, Parvez, the scout, the city. Cross, Ashkar said. Carry your name. If the plate falls, if the shard breaks, if a single name burns to blank, you fail. End the line. Lyra reached for the plate. Rafi shook his head. My carry, he said. Parvez lifted the shard and wrapped it in wet cloth. The scout took the small flag, hands careful like a student with a first sword. Rafi set the steel plate on his palms. It was ugly. It was heavy. The scratched names felt like many small hands. He stepped to the edge of the pale fire. The heat was not hot. It was hungry. It wanted to eat meaning. It licked the plate and tried to turn Nadia into a smudge, Iqbal into a hole, Sada into ash. Rafi stepped in. The ground song woke under his feet, not loud, but true. The plates named in the bowels of the city, Nadia, Iqbal, Sada, Parvez, Lyra, answered with a deep hum. The lamp poles remembered. The river wheels turned once like they wanted to help. Halfway across, the plate shook. One name began to drift toward blank. Gibran. Rafi stopped in the fire. He did not step back. He did not rush. He spoke, simple and soft. Gibran, he said. You fixed a fan with wire and smiles. You laughed at bad soup. You carried 2 babies at once. You are here. The ink bit back. The name held. Rafi stepped again. The plate grew heavier. It carried not only the scratched names now, but the weight of all the small stories tied to them. He leaned forward. The pale fire hissed. At the last step, the fire reached for the bottom line. We are the humankind. The letters wavered. Rafi did not raise his voice. He pressed his stamped palm to the words. We saved hatchlings, he said. We keep names. We remember. The words stuck. He stepped out of the fire and set the plate on the flag. The elder court's voice rolled down like thunder finding a valley. Third proof kept. Silence held a heartbeat. Then people breathed again all at once. Judgment and the counter-laws Ashkar's crown screamed. Enough! His pride would not bend. He rose with a roar and lunged for Raffi, claws wide, mouth bright. Raffi did not draw a gun. He did not throw a bomb. He lifted the megaphone casing, dead heavy, and slammed it onto the crossing of the resonance pipes as before. Grid, he said. Sing, the city sang. Stones, lamp poles, rails, plates. Everything that could carry a note carried one. It was not a pretty song. It was a true song. It wrapped Ashkar's wings in slow air. It bent his strike a hand's width. It gave Raffi one breath. The young scout leaped and struck Ashkar's crown with the flat of his blade. Not to cut, to wake. The crown rang like a bell. Old law inside it shivered. Lyra raised her stamped hand and spoke into the song so the court could hear. Humanity's counter-laws, she said, voice clear. 7 lines. Raffi took them one by one, simple as doors. Every child is untouchable. Every voice may speak. Energy is for life, not chains. No hunt without trial. Memory is sacred. Truth belongs to all. No throne above dignity. We bow to wisdom, not fear. The elder worms listened. Old law recognized new law like a river hears rain. Ashkar tore free of the slow air and swung again. Parvez stepped in and set a binding line, a chain of light made from the grid's note and oath ink, around the king's ankle. It held for a blink, then snapped. That blink was enough. Raffi moved fast and calm and set the same line across Ashkar's wrist where the crown fed him. The binding held. Not tight, not cruel, just stop. Ashkar froze with his claws an inch from Raffi's throat. His breath burned the air. His eyes were 2 furnaces fighting to be calm. The elder with the broken horn lowered his head. Court has heard. Strength kept. Honor kept. Memory kept. A pause deep as a well. King Ashkar broke honor and memory. He hunted without trial. He cut names. He called the old trial for pride. The prince's face went blank with fear. Sentence, the elder said. Crown bound. Laws repealed. Throne kept only by those who remember the hand that saved hatchlings. A sound like wind through winter trees moved across the rift. The black quills fell like dead leaves. The big forge under the clock shut its eye. Hunters lowered their blades. Some stepped back. Some sat down very slowly like men waking from a bad dream. The young scout looked at Raffi, then at the court, then at his own hands. He bowed, not low, not like a slave, but like a soldier, to another soldier who stood. Ashkar shook once like a chain storm deciding whether to tear the world. Then his shoulders lowered a fraction. Not a bow, not yet, but not claws. Raffi looked up at the elder court. We ask no throne, he said. We ask pact. Lyra held the flag high. The oath ink glowed like morning. Parvez set the steel plate beside it. The scout touched both with his claw mark and did not flinch. The elder spoke. Pact stands. Dragon courts will carry the counter laws alongside their own. Names will not be erased. Children will not be tribute. Hunts will have trial. Energy will feed life. Memory will be shared. The ring of the rift widened like a slow dawn. The cold wind turned clean. Ashkar looked at Raffi for a long breath. His voice when it came was a stone rolling down a hill. You did not kneel, he said. Raffi's answer was simple. We stood. Ashkar closed his eyes. He opened them. He did not speak again. The elder court withdrew like tide. The rift thinned to a silver thread, then to nothing. The sky over the city showed the red star again, wounded and warm. Lights came on. Fans breathed. The lantern hummed. Somewhere a baby laughed as if she knew nothing of law and fire and names, only the feel of arms and the sound of a song. Granny Sada wiped flour and tears from her face and barked at Parvez to eat something. He grinned and did. Lyra leaned against Raffi's shoulder. The young scout stood a little apart, watching both sides of a new road. He touched his crown mark and seemed taller. Raffi folded the small flag carefully and pressed it to the steel plate. He looked over the square, the broken stones, the fallen pages, the quiet machines, the people standing. He spoke the last line with no music and no shout, only truth. He did not kneel, the narrator could say of him one day. So the galaxy learned to stand.